Hello there, John, and welcome to Elite Heat, the only show that you need on Mondays there, John.
AEW is winning in the ratings every week, Margo. There's another one for the good guys, Margo.
As JBL so accurately said, thank you for that, JBL. AEW, the good guys, they popped 1 million rating. It's crazy. I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless. I didn't think it was going to happen. Honestly, I thought, AEW was going to ride around like 800,000, 700,000 viewers. But yeah, we got that to talk about. The AEW ratings, the NXT ratings, I guess we're going to talk about that too. We got a lot of stuff to talk about. The possibility of a WWE draft or a superstar shakeup, if you will. There's a lot of stuff to talk about. So where do you want to start? Oh, of course, we got Black. Go ahead.
No, before we get into the content of this, just want to say, essentially, the main premise of this show, we're episode 17. It's a bit of fun, just talking about general post-Mania aftermath type stuff, because we did the Mania Super Show last week. We did the best of Mania, worst of Mania. We've done the WrestleMania review type shows and previews. Now we're doing a lot of kind of after Mania stuff. So this week we're doing that. Next week's going to be a wrestler bio, which will be a bit of fun. So with that being said, I think the best place to start this off is the thing that people are talking about most, NXT and AEW, Kevin. Now, NXT and AEW this past week had their first shows respectively on their own nights. NXT on Tuesday, AEW Dynamite on Wednesday nights. We had some interesting ratings. So I'll throw it back to you, Kevin. Walk me through the viewership for both shows.
Well, NXT, they came in on Tuesday night with an 805,000 rating, which isn't bad. 805,000 people watched NXT. It's pretty solid. That's slightly above average for them. Their average is 600,000, 650. So
yeah,
not bad. A lot of people are probably hoping that they would do more, but I think really the pushback there when it comes to NXT is there's no real star power on NXT. It's a real niche brand. It's a niche product. There's nothing really that people need to see, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the whole thing, I've talked about this at length at this point. NXT, to describe it simply, on USA Network, what NXT is, it's 70s NWA style wrestling with a bit better production and a bit better of a budget, where most of the wrestlers involved are about 5'7". That's literally NXT. So they get this rating of 805,000 viewers. I think it's a good, reasonable first week being unopposed type rating for them. What was the main event of the show again? What an 8-person mixed tag?
Yeah, the big hook and storyline for the show is Indy Hartwell being in love with Dexter Lumis. So I guess when that's the hook and that's the main storyline the show is being built around, 805,000 viewers is not terrible when you put that in context, I would say, because you had a Karrion Kross promo at the beginning, but that was the first 2 minutes of the show. Then the show was literally built around Indy Hartwell, The Way, and Dexter Lumis and all the other guys that he was teaming with.
Yeah, so when you have that as the main event, I just think generally you're not really going to have several million people watching that. Having Dexter Lumis carrying off my favorite wrestler, Indy Hartwell, as Bronson Reed's roaring in the ring, that kind of stuff is it's okay content, Kevin. It really is, but is it content that's going to grasp 1 million plus? No, I saw people on Twitter being oh, well, NXT can't even crack 1 million. I'm just just forget the million with NXT. NXT and 1 million shouldn't even be in the same sentence. What NXT should be focusing on is literally this, keeping it consistent 800 plus thousand. Because for the NXT product we get week to week, 800 plus thousand is a genuinely really good number, considering how niche the product is. Do you feel the same?
Absolutely. I 100% agree. When you look at AEW has larger-than-life characters. They have Kenny Omega, they have Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley, Cody, Jim Ross is on commentary. They have these guys that people are going to go out of their way to watch. People are going to see a clip of the Young Bucks on Instagram with their Dior Jordans, and they're going to be oh, okay, I need to go check out Dynamite. What does NXT have that makes you go, oh, I need to check this out? Nothing really. There's not going to be a clip of Finn Balor kicking Pete Dunne in the forehead 6 times or kicking him in the chest. That's not going to go viral on Instagram and make people want to tune in,
But don't you want to watch MSK having a great match with Killian Dane and Drake Maverick? Isn't that going to go viral on Instagram, get millions of retweets, shares. Like, I think Kevin, I think you're being a bit harsh on NXT, Kevin.
Oh yes, totally. I mean,
Oh,
I don't hate
what a joke.
NXT. You know, I don't hate NXT. I like NXT. I don't, you know, I'm not bashing it or anything.
I mean, yeah.
It is what it is. It's just Karrion Kross is their only star, but when you don't have another star for him to run with, you know, it is what it is at that point. Like you put Karrion Kross and Finn Balor next to each other, and people are just not going to go out of their way to watch that. You know, it's just the casual fan. Obviously, NXT's fan base is going to watch that forever and ever, but the casual fan is just not going to go out of their way for it.
Well, remember at Takeover when they did obviously they had Balor versus Cross at Takeover, and before the match they did that like 2 minute long face off, and you got Karrion Kross wearing this like tribal war gear, and he's like this 6 foot. I mean, they bill him as 6'4", I believe, so he's probably like 6'3" ish. So like he's towering over Finn Balor, who's maybe about 5'8", and he's just it's like why is it to give this like a school analogy? It looks like a 12th grader staring down an 8th grader. That's what it looks like. It doesn't look like something which you're going to go, oh my God, yes. And that's the same with pretty much everyone Karrion Kross, you know, will be facing. Like you look at the NXT brand, where are Karrion Kross's challenges coming from? Because inevitably they're going to do O'Reilly versus Cross for the title. Are they going to have Kyle O'Reilly defeat Karrion Kross? Are you Triple H, are you that dumb? Are you going to do that? Are you going to have Kyle O'Reilly, the guy who his gimmick is that he has a mullet, and he's going to be beating Karrion Kross, this guy who looks like he could beat up Roman Reigns? Like, I don't know. So that's like the main thing about NXT. They draw 805,000 viewers. I think going forward, I mean, I'll throw this to you, Kevin. Going forward, what numbers do you think NXT will be drawing, just generally speaking, for the next like month?
I think 800,000 is probably their peak, and unless they bring like Demon Finn Balor back, they could probably hit 900,000, 950 million maybe. But I don't really see them going above 800. I could even see them slipping down to like 700,
yeah.
750.
Oh yeah.
It's, especially like on a Tuesday night, you have a lot going on Tuesday night, and NXT could easily get lost in the shuffle if it's not as compelling.
Well, like this is the NXT, which I mean, I'll walk you back to January and February when NXT drew 550,000 viewers. They drew 610,000 on a show which had Edge on it. So with that being considered, I look at NXT and I think, okay, this is a premiere, being exclusively on Tuesday nights without AEW competing against them. I think realistically for them, 700 to about 740. That's where I think they're going to stay. I think there's probably about 50-ish thousand who just watched the Tuesday episode because it's NXT by itself for the first time on Tuesdays. Let's really see what they do. I think a number of those viewers will be turned off. That's what I think, at least. So going forward, 700 to 740, I think is where they're going to stay. Do you think that's fair?
Yeah. I don't see a lot of people that watched Indy Hartwell and Dexter Loomis making googly eyes at each other, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to come back next week to see what happens next. Like, I just don't think that that's a feasible thought to have. It's just, it's very niche. They didn't really change. They kind of they're going business as usual with NXT. We didn't really see a balls to the wall NXT that I think probably would have happened had the move to Tuesday nights happened maybe 10 months ago, like back when in the era when they're doing Keith Lee versus Adam Cole simply to beat Dynamite for 1 week. Like, if we're back in that era, we probably would have seen like Adam Cole versus Finn Balor versus Karrion Kross in a triple threat match for the NXT title. We would have saw Johnny Gargano versus Kushida or something for the North American title. Like, WWE would have put a stacked card on. But I think they've moved on for that. I think NXT is just going to continue with business as usual and just keep working on the storylines and building the characters that they have been building for the last few months.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Generally speaking, I just think NXT, they're just going to go about their merry way. I think Triple H at this point, based on the booking we saw in 2020, I mean, I would say he proved he just doesn't really care. But at the same time, it's the same guy who, as you say, booked Cole versus Keith Lee on like 2 weeks' notice just to beat Fyter Fest in the ratings for like 1 week, So I don't know. I mean, we'll see going forward. Like, you look at the NXT roster, and I'm really struggling to see, besides Cross, what there is going to really jump out at you. Like, what as far as what NXT is doing is going to make you go, damn, I need to see that. Because Cross, he's that. Is Kyle O'Reilly's pursuit of the NXT title going to do that?
Well, really, the only card that WWE has in their deck is like bringing a guy like Big E, for example, as a surprise appearance in NXT and have him confront Karrion Kross. Like that's really the only card left they have to play when it comes to like popping interest and popping a big rating. From my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, you use Big E. I don't think that's the best example. I think a better example is someone like Cesaro. I think that's a good one. Because like you look at someone like him, he just won at WrestleMania. If you have Karrion Kross next week beating up some loser, and then Cesaro's music hits, and we get this like big Cesaro and Kross face off, I think that could do pretty good. Because I mean, it's more realistic having Cesaro against Kross in NXT for the NXT title than having Cesaro confronting the tribal god on SmackDown. You know, I think that's probably more believable and people get behind that more. So something like that, Cesaro, maybe a Kevin Owens, that type of guy. I think having them go to NXT, maybe an AJ Styles, but he's the Raw Tag Champion at the moment, so he can't really do that. So just bring those type of guys.
Well, they did. They did that this week. They had Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley make an appearance with their belts. I almost forgot about that.
But I don't know. It's like, I mean, they didn't really like
they didn't do anything. They just kind of hugged each other and cried. And with Raquel Gonzalez, all three of them were just hugging and like taking a bow for women's wrestling. But it's still a pretty big deal, you know. Bianca Belair showing up right after she won the world title, just showing up on NXT randomly.
True. I mean, it's like that was cool. But yeah, so that's NXT. They drew 805. Now, I think we move on to the much more notable talking point rating. AEW Dynamite for April 14th, 2021. They draw 1.219 million viewers. So, so they got a 0.44 in the 18 to 49. Kevin, wow. I mean, did you see this coming?
No, I didn't. And I think what this tells me, what it tells me is like something about the fan base of both products. I think more NXT fans that were watching NXT on a regular basis every single week for the past year and some months, I think they were more willing to watch AEW than maybe AEW fans were willing to watch NXT on Tuesday, if that makes any sense. So that could be a part of it. It could be the fact that, you know, Mike Tyson promoted his appearance on AEW. It could be Chris Jericho versus one half of FTR. Who knows? Who knows what drew this rating? But I don't know. I did not see it coming. I really didn't. I thought they were going to hit maybe 900,000, 850. I didn't see 1.2 million coming. Like that's a pretty big number for a second grade wrestling company. And that is what they are. They're not WWE. They're not the Disney of wrestling, pal. They're a second tier company. That's a pretty big number to draw. I mean,
oh hell yeah.
You know, you're going up against like the NBA on ESPN. I'm sure there's the Masked Singer. Like there's other stuff going on too, and they did a pretty big number. It's impressive.
Definitely, and like I think one of the things with this rating, like you look at 1.219 million. Genuinely speaking, 1.219 is going to be a rating Raw gets in the third hour in a show in December this year. Like no doubt about it. There's going to be a story in this December. Oh my God, Raw draws lowest ever third hour rating as they get 1.21 million viewers for, I don't know, Matt Riddle versus The Miz in the main event of Raw, you know? Like, that's the kind of stuff we'll be seeing in December, like October, November, December this year. So when you put it like that, AEW Dynamite this week in April gets a rating that's going to be competing with Raw in a few months down the line. Like, that's really good. And I think one of the things with AEW, you mentioned the kind of like the stars and the names and all that kind of stuff that they have. I think that's a big one as well, because we just talked about NXT and like what they have. They have Karrion Kross, and they have a bunch of guys from ROH, and they have a good women's division, I guess. And then you look at AEW, and you've got, as you said, Chris Jericho. You had Sting showing up in the main event, Matt Hardy. You have Mike Tyson, a guy who is a household name worldwide. As far as the wrestling capacity, the Young Bucks versus Rey Fenix and Park, a big, oh my God, that's a dream match type tag match to open the show. You got all this stuff. You got 2 women's matches, and historically, the AEW, the women's matches, as dead as the division's been, the women's stuff draws. So just right across the board, Christian Cage in action, like right across the board, the card was structured well. I thought what they did throughout the night, I mean, the show flowed pretty well. Yes, the Young Bucks promo to open the show wasn't the best. Yes, it wasn't a perfect show. But just across the board, I thought they did a pretty good job, Kevin.
Absolutely. And you know, that's another thing too, is there was no Kenny Omega, there was no Cody, there was no Jon Moxley on this episode of Dynamite. So who knows what the ceiling is like when those guys are on, and I'm sure they will be next week. So we'll see. That'd be something, right? If they have like Kenny Omega on like all over the show, they have 3 Kenny Omega segments, and this show does under 1 million. Like that would be, that would be crazy.
Well, like I can't wait to see what they do next week, because next week they're doing Shida versus Tay Conti for the women's title in the main event, which I'm interested by that, because considering it's the women's title, and considering like a lot of people are a big fan of Tay Conti. Like, I reckon that's going to do, like, that match. I don't know about the rest of the show, because the rest of the show is a bunch of, like, okay to good matches, which everyone's saying are stacked, like, we're used to, Kevin. But, like, the main event, I think that main event is probably going to do, I mean, if the whole show draws, let's say 1 million, the main event's doing, like, 1.15 or 1.2, Like, that's a main event that people are going to tune into. Because it's Shida, it's, Tay Conti, women's title. Probably after the match, Thunder Rosa or Britt Baker are going to get involved. There's going to be something go down there. So I think that's going to be a big main event, which is going to draw a really good number. The rest of the show is probably going to do all right. But really, it's interesting to see where they go from here. I think, Kevin, going forward, where do you think AEW will settle? Like, was 1.219 a bit of an aberration? A bit of a everything comes together perfectly and they're going to go back to 950,000? What do you think they're going to settle at, like 1 to 1.1 million? Like, what do you think?
I think, like I said earlier, it could have been just NXT watchers sampling AEW, seeing what AEW is like. So we'll see if that number stays steady or if it goes down. I think if you're doing a 1.2 million though, realistically, and you're doing that without Kenny Omega, Moxley, just Jericho in like a really mid match, like it wasn't the best of Jericho that we've ever seen. I think they could easily like break 1.5. Like imagine back in like late 2019 when you have these Cody and Jericho segments where they're cutting these really good promos on each other. Imagine you're doing that with no competition. Like what number AEW could have drawn, So I think the ceiling is high, or higher, I should say, for AEW than NXT's ceiling. But I mean, realistically, they're probably going to live around that 900,000 to like 1.1 million for the time being. I don't really see them like going too high. Like I don't see them like stagnating out at 1.4 million. Like I just can't see AEW drawing the same numbers as Raw. It's just it's really just unfathomable to think about, to even like consider that being a possibility. So I want to say for now, I'd say like the 900,000 to 1.1 million range seems about right. And then you talk about
sorry, cut you off really quick. I just want to throw into this, which may impact your point. I think the Blood and Guts show, which is May 5th, I believe, that one, if this show draws 1.2, I think that show is drawing 1.3, maybe more. Like, they're building it up like this big, all-conquering clash between the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle. You've got the Blood and Guts stipulation, and that's going to be like the whole second hour of the show. So I think in that regard, if you've got Mike Tyson involved, actively promoting this Blood and Guts match on Dynamite, and if you preload that with maybe a Moxley segment, maybe an Omega match, maybe a Young Bucks match, maybe a Darby Allin TNT title match, like I reckon that show it could well do ballpark 1.3 to 1.4 million realistically,
Absolutely.
Which is nuts. So yeah,
absolutely. And I think a few weeks back, going back to talking about next week's Dynamite, a few weeks back, the women proved that they can main event with Thunder Rosa and Britt Baker. They had a really highly rated segment, highly rated match. They killed it. Now you've got Tay Conti and Shida main eventing. I think AEW has to change the title. They have to put the belt on Tay Conti. Like I can't see them giving the women this main event spot and just having Shida win again. Shida's been champion for 10 months. And
too long.
We love Tay Conti, strictly for her in-ring ability. Tay Conti, we are fans of her at the Elite Heat podcast. Her in-ring ability, did you see that drop kick that Tay Conti delivered in a match on AEW Dark 2 weeks ago? It was so crisp. Wouldn't you agree?
OMG, bro. So crisp, so crunchy, just a delicious dropkick.
Yes, her drop kicks, strictly in-ring ability. We love Tay Conti. I think she could be a legitimate draw for the women's division in AEW, and I think it would be the best thing to do to put their best foot forward when you've got a lot of people watching, presumably, because you have, Powerhouse Hobbs he's gonna devour Christian Cage for majority of the match that they have. They have pretty good card for next week. So I don't know. We'll see what happens with that main event, though. I'm definitely intrigued in that main event.
Well, they're doing main events now, which this is kind of like the old AEW thing, which I talked about in my video. They're doing main events, which have you more genuinely intrigued. Like us is kind of like more casual AEW fans who'll watch it when it's good, so, quote unquote. These matches they're doing at the moment, like the AEW World Tag Title match from this past week, even literally Matt Hardy versus Darby Allin for the TNT title, Falls Count Anywhere. Now this women's title match, like I think you're pretty much the same as you just said. Like I'm genuinely like pretty damn intrigued by that. I want to see Tay Conti win the women's title. I want to see if they have Thunder Rosa or Britt Baker confront her afterwards or like attack someone. Like I want to see what they do. So I'm gonna be tuning in to see that, which is a really good thing for AEW. Like in months past, when they'd be main eventing shows with these random like, oh, here's a random tag team match with Omega and I don't know Doc Gallows versus Moxley and Matt Jackson. It's just like I don't care. But like these matches now are like they're title match main events, which are progressing stories in divisions which are actually kind of more interesting now. Like AEW generally across the board is getting more things right as NXT's moved to Tuesdays. You love to see it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a Tay Conti and Thunder Rosa rivalry for the women's title, like that could that's money. That could bring AEW's women's division to heights that it hasn't been yet. You have two women that are very appealing for their in-ring ability on the internet, and they can speak English. They're charismatic individuals. I would say when you look at AEW's women's division, I would say Tay Conti and Thunder Rosa are probably the two most charismatic, or they're at the very top of the list. So that would benefit them in the long run versus Hikaru Shida, as great as she is. What has she done? What can you tell me about her title reign? Like, is there anything that sticks out?
Like 3 matches. She had like 3 matches with Nyla Rose or something.
Right.
That's legit all I can tell you. That's like a 10-month reign. Like, bro.
Exactly. But you look at it like a girl like Thunder Rosa, I could tell you when she debuted for AEW. You could talk about the match she had with Britt Baker on Dynamite a few weeks back. Like she's had memorable moments, and I don't know. It seems like a step in the right direction. No, what do you think about while we're talking about AEW? I want to get your thoughts. What do you think about the way Christian Cage has been being used?
No, I'll answer that in a moment. Really quickly, just on Thunder Rosa before we move on from like the women's stuff. I'll never forget. I was watching Revolution this past how a month ago, I think, 6 weeks ago. I'm watching Revolution. They do the women's match, which was probably Shida versus Rose or something like that. They're doing the women's match, and then after the match, they do that corny kind of brawl where all the women are getting involved. It's just they're going through the motions. You don't really care when you're watching it. And then Thunder Rosa's music hits. She rushes out wearing the bright blue attire. She's screaming. She's got all the energy. She's up and about, making the most of her TV time, really trying to compel you as a viewer. And I remember watching that thinking, well, I care about her more than any of them just because of how much she cares. She's not just going through the motions. She's trying to make this as good as it can possibly be. And that stuck with me. So now whenever I see Thunder Rosa, I'm a fan. I want to see her succeed, do well, beat Tay Conti for the title if Tay Conti wins, beat Britt Baker, stuff like that's really good. But moving on to the Christian Cage question, they're booking him pretty well. I think the whole workhorse gimmick, it's a bit of a tricky one considering if this is 2005 and he's the only guy who wants to be a workhorse, it's one thing. But considering now everyone nowadays wrestles that workhorse style, I think that kind of thing's a bit it is what it is, I guess. But generally speaking, I think him against Team Taz, I think it's cool. You're giving him something to do. Clearly, he's not going to be in the world title picture just yet, even though he had the segment with Omega a month ago. I don't really know exactly what they're doing, to be honest, but I think they're doing okay with him. What do you think?
I'll ask you a follow-up question. Would you say, based on the way he was brought in, with the amount of hype, and would you say it was kind of a hindrance for his overall run? People are going to judge him just based on the fact of he was promoted as this big deal that's going to change the landscape in AEW. Do you think that's going to hinder him or hurt him or help him in the long run? What do you think?
It'll hinder him a little bit. I think the way they brought him in with the whole, Paul White going, I have the inside scoop, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, Shivani, we're having a Hall of Fame worthy talent. And then everyone's like, oh my God, it's CM Punk, guys. Oh my God. And then Christian Cage just kind of walks out, stands there, and leaves at Revolution. Is that going to be a bit of a hindrance? I mean, a little bit. I think generally he'll be fine in the long run. I think for the time being, it's a bit this is the guy who we thought was going to be Brock Lesnar or CM Punk, and it was Christian. It's Christian. I don't know. But I think long term, he'll be all right. The thing with AEW, Christian, Miro. There's a bunch of these guys who are in like a similar boat as far as could be world champions, but they're just kind of biding their time waiting, you know? Is that
Right.
fair?
Right. And
Like,
everybody can't be world champion. Exactly. And I think I'll answer your question by segueing into another topic as well, because we're going to talk about the releases. Samoa Joe got released from WWE. He's amongst the headliners of today's Dark Wednesday. Um, and I think, I could easily see this being a thing where AEW brings in Samoa Joe and they instantly put him in a rivalry with Christian. I don't know why, but I can just foresee this happening. And
yep.
I look at that as a step back if they were to do something like that. Just because they have to do something with Christian. They can't just have him come out and
Well,
wrestle.
why so? Why so? Why do you use the word step back? Elaborate, please.
Well, because people are going to look at it and they're going to be like, oh, this is TNA again. We've already seen Christian versus Samoa Joe back in 2006 in TNA. Like, it just shows that these guys weren't good enough to be main eventers in WWE, but here they are running rampant because some people know who they are on AEW, so AEW is trying to, capitalize on their stardom, where they're going to say, oh, Samoa Joe should be building up young guys, he should be facing Kenny Omega for the title, and here he is facing Christian again. But it's like they're kind of putting themselves in a corner with Christian because they have to do something with him, but they don't want to put him in there with Kenny because then it's gonna be the same thing. Oh, there's another WWE guy taking spotlight, whatever. So they're just having him wrestle these great matches every single week on Dynamite, and I don't know why, but I could just see it with Samoa Joe and Christian, and I don't know. I don't think it's a great thing for AEW. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that is fair. I like Christian in general. I mean, I kind of mentioned a moment ago, but he's just one of these guys who he has name power to the extent of you can have him facing Omega for the title, but at the same time, you can't have, as you say, all these guys facing Kenny for the world title at once. Like, you can easily do Christian versus Omega. You can easily do Miro versus Omega. You can do Cody versus Omega. You can do all these matches. But at the end of the day, it's like there's only one Omega. There's only one world championship. In the meantime, what are you going to do to fill in, these months where Omega's the champion before Hangman Page beats him? I hope. Like what are you going to do? So for Christian, it's going to be matches against guys like, I guess in this case, Will Hobbs. It's going to be potentially Samoa Joe if he signs there. It's going to be these work rate matches against like Alex Reynolds, that type of thing. It's going to be, oh my God, a big main event. Christian versus Anthony Ogogo. Like, that's going to be the type of stuff they're going to do with Christian for the next, 3 to 6 months. And I guess that's just their way of killing time. Will that kill Christian's momentum? Maybe. But was Christian's momentum really that great to begin with because of how they brought him in? Not really. So those are my thoughts on Christian. I think transitioning into the releases, as you mentioned, Samoa Joe, he was the big one. A lot of people were crying and complaining about Samoa Joe being wasted in WWE. I guess I'll throw the question to you, Kevin. Was Samoa Joe wasted by a WWE?
Man, that term, it depends. It depends what you define the term wasted as. If you're defining the term wasted as a guy who wrestled a bunch of main event matches, I mean, he headlined pay-per-views with Brock Lesnar, AJ Styles, Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, and if you're looking at that, you're looking at a guy that made a ton of money in his run, a guy that was always positioned as an upper mid-carder to a main eventer. I would say no. I would say no, he's not wasted. But if you're looking at it and you're going, well, he could have been WWE champion because I think he's good enough to be WWE champion, therefore he's wasted, then I guess, that's one perspective to look at it. Like, he could have been WWE champion, realistically. But when you really think about it, you look at who's been WWE champion the last, 10 to 15 years. Would Samoa Joe fit that build? Like, I mean, the only other guy I can compare him to is a Kevin Owens. And what did Kevin Owens do when he was champion? He was in a mid-card feud with Jericho while he was holding the top belt. So what would they have done with Samoa Joe as champion? I don't. What do you think when it comes to Samoa Joe? Do you think he was wasted?
I mean, you present the case there. I'm very similar to you in the sense of how I view the term wasted in wrestling. Because people I'll use the example of Shayna Baszler at the moment. Shayna Baszler walked into WrestleMania as the women's tag champion, wins a WrestleMania match, submits Natalya, I believe, wins at WrestleMania. Presumably she's getting paid handsomely, well into the six figures, living a dream lifestyle in WWE. where she shows up, wrestles a match, gets on TV in front of 2 million odd people and millions of viewers on YouTube, and gets her name out there. And if people want to tell me and try and pass off to people on Twitter that with Shayna Baszler is being wasted, then you need to really reassess what that word means. You need to actually look up what the word wasted actually means. I think it's a big issue as far as like Samoa Joe. He's a great example. You mentioned it there. The guy would have been paid, I mean, over the course of his WWE run from 2015 through beginning of 2021, he would have been paid somewhere well over $1 million in that time, probably upwards of maybe a bit over $2 million. So you're looking at a guy who wrestles in NXT from 2015 through 2016. He's NXT champion there. He has some great matches with Balor and Nakamura. He comes into WWE, has a main event marquee storyline through the summer with Brock Lesnar, the Brock Lesnar. Joe has a big storyline with Brock. He nearly wins the title at Great Balls of Fire. Then they have this amazing match at SummerSlam. Samoa Joe's in the SummerSlam main event for the Universal Championship. And then Samoa Joe the next year is having a 4 pay-per-view program with AJ Styles, the WWE title. And then he's having this feud with like Braun Strowman, and he's all around the Raw main event scene for like a year, and then he's doing commentary. Like, do I class that as wasted? Do I class a guy who looks like a couch potato coming into the company and having such a successful run with main event runs, commentary, getting paid $2+ million, living a dream career? Do I view that as wasted? No. I just don't. Because he didn't beat Brock Lesnar. Should he have beaten Brock Lesnar? Maybe. There's a case there, but do I feel like he should have? No. Like, that's my 2 cents, Kevin. Just do with that what you will, I guess. I don't know.
Absolutely. Like, I'll add this. I'll say Samoa Joe, he's had a ton of memorable moments. Like, one that sticks out to me is the feud with AJ Styles, and where he's at AJ's house, basically implying that he's sleeping with AJ's wife. And, he's like, "Oh, Wendy, you know the truth, Wendy." Like I look at some of the iconic moments that he's had. He put Brock Lesnar to sleep. His debut on the main roster, he's attacking Seth Rollins as Seth Rollins is about to wrestle Triple H at WrestleMania on Raw. It's like he's done a bunch of things. Like, when I think of the term wasted in wrestling, I look at a guy like Aleister Black, who hasn't been on TV in a year, and he's literally just sitting and catering. And this guy is talented enough to, at minimum, he's a talented guy enough to be a multiple-time Intercontinental Champion, multiple-time Tag Team Champion at minimum. And he's literally just sitting and catering because his wife is collecting checks from Twitch and OnlyFans as a punishment. That's what I look at, and I say, yes, okay, that's wasted. You look at some of the other guys that were released, the Iconics, Chelsea Green, Bo Dallas. Okay, Chelsea Green, is she wasted? Like, people are throwing that out there. How was Chelsea Green wasted? She got injured. It's not like what there's nothing you could do about that. And it's not like she came in with all this talent, this resume, this repertoire, where it was like you look at a guy like AJ Styles, he comes in with expectations. Oh, okay, this guy's coming from TNA, Japan, he's a big deal. You look at Chelsea Green, she's coming in, I believe she was the lady that had the crazy wedding in TNA, if I remember correctly. She was like this crazy zombie bride. And that's like what we're saying is wasted, It's the terminology is very vague. Oh, I would say extremely misused. I think that's fair. Like, it's just so overly used. Chelsea Green, wasted, really? What do you have to say about that one? The Chelsea Green one.
Chelsea Green, she was just the victim of bad luck. There's no other way of putting it. The 2 times, definitely 1, maybe 2 times, she got like a main roster opportunity. She got injured, which, that just sucks. That's just life being unlucky. That's all that is. That's not Vince McMahon being horrible and wasting her. Vince isn't going to make someone who's legitimately injured be the top star of his women's division, beating Becky Lynch, beating Ronda Rousey. No. It's the terminology in the community, like, been wasted, buried, like, these type of, they deserve better. Like these type of terms, which have been so watered down to a point where I genuinely don't think people understand what they mean. People just like to use them because they want to fit in. Like, buried especially, I'm sure we'll do a whole video ranting about that on one of our channels, or maybe the Late Hate channel. That's been grossly misused. But generally speaking, with Chelsea Green, as I just said, victim of bad luck, and that's really about it. And then when I look at the other releases, the Iconics,
Now that
I don't
must have been
know.
a tough one for you. The Iconics were getting released. I know you woke up and you almost shed a tear over that one. You were very sad. I assume, right?
Oh yeah, I woke up, saw that Peyton Royce,
No,
yes, Peyton
my
Royce,
dog is
Billy
doing a run in.
Kay,
I'll be right back.
Peyton Royce, Billy Kay, these wrestling superstars from Australia had been released. And as you guys know, everyone who's in the chat right now, everyone's listening to this, I'm a proud Australian human being. I love Australian wrestling. So to see Billy Kay and Peyton Royce released that way, look, could they have done more with both of them? I mean, yeah. Was I a fan of the Iconics when they were a tag team? No. Do I go around Australian supermarkets doing the Iconics pose because I just can? No. But the fact of the matter is, they were both good talents. Were they wasted by Vince McMahon? I mean, could you have made Peyton Royce a women's champion like once? I mean, you could have. Would that have been any good? Would that have really jumped ratings? Would that have made ratings go from where they were to, push them forward? I don't think so. I don't think Peyton Royce is a big enough of a draw to really do that. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Peyton Royce goes to AEW and Peyton Royce is involved in an AEW women's match that draws 2 million viewers. I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, Peyton Royce and Billy Kay as singles talents, I don't know. Like, I'm a fan of them because they're Australian, but really, outside of Billy Kay's resume gimmick for like a couple of months, which was a bit funny in the SmackDown mid-card for the women's division, outside that, I just don't really see it. So that's the Iconics. Kevin, I'll throw to you in a moment with your thoughts on the Iconics, but just to run over these other releases, Bo Dallas, okay, Bo Dallas got released. For all the people saying that Bo Dallas is the Fiend, no. Shut up.
Yeah, the fake Fiend. Fake Fiend versus the real Fiend.
I'll throw back to your opinion real quick. I just did a monologue about the Iconics, how much they mean to me because I'm Australian. Walk me through Billy Kay and Peyton Royce. Were they wasted, Kevin? Did Vince McMahon screw up there? Like, walk me through that one.
Yes, Peyton Royce was wasted because she cut a phenomenal promo on, what was it, Raw Talk. So yeah, she deserves to be Raw Women's Champion because she said, I deserve it, in an Australian accent. So therefore, she is wasted, pal. But like seriously, you look at the Iconics, I would say they overachieved. I think that's pretty fair to say. Like, they were two women that would, like, they didn't really have characters. Their characters were that they're Australian. They're like,
legit.
There's nothing else to them. They look like almost every other woman on the roster. The only difference is they sound different than everybody else, and they're like, people are saying, oh my god, Billy Kay is hilarious. She was so funny at, what was that segment she did where she was handing somebody her resume?
Oh god, the resume segment. Every week for 3 months on the SmackDown women's undercard was just Billy Kay going, hi, I'm Billy Kay. I'm Billy, here's my resume. Here it is. Look at it. Yeah, I'm Billy Kay. Like, that's legit all it was. And it's like, bruh, I mean, okay, it's something. And like you mentioned the Iconics there, they overachieved. The Iconics had a better WrestleMania moment than most of the roster has ever had. But when they won the tag titles at WrestleMania 35, it was this big, grand moment. They beat Sasha Banks and Bayley, the Boss and Hug connection for the titles 6 weeks after they became a thing. Like, that moment right there is a bigger career accomplishment than near enough anyone in the wrestling industry's had when you look at it in totality. So in that regard, was Peyton Royce wasted? Well, no, because she had a bigger moment than near enough most of the rosters had just in totality. And,
that's very true. Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
God.
I mean, Bo Dallas is dating Liv Morgan, so I'm not going to say he's wasted at all. Like, Bo Dallas is living a better life than 99% of men in the world. So
Bo Dallas,
God bless him.
He's had the David Otunga effect, where he's been collecting checks from WWE for several years, despite not appearing on TV. And literally, as you mentioned there, Bo Dallas, for like literally 3 years, hasn't been involved in anything. He's been collecting high or serviceable 6-figure plus checks from Vince McMahon to do what? Date Liv Morgan and start a real estate business. How could life be so horrible for Bo Dallas? Oh my god. Is he one of the millions who are on unemployment right now? No. He's collecting high 6 figures to eat Titus Catering, date Liv Morgan, and do real estate. How could life be so cruel, Kevin?
Oh my god, I know. Yeah, nobody. I'm not gonna say anybody's being misused. I'm not gonna feel bad for anyone that's dating Liv Morgan. So yeah, move on to the next one. Who was the other guy? Tucker, right? Was the other guy that was released?
Yeah, he tweeted freedom exclamation mark when he was released. I'll throw this one to you. Do you really care? Tucker Knight's been released. Oh no.
I mean,
Oh,
I'm sure he'll show up in Ring of Honor in like 90 days, and he'll pop a big rating for Ring of Honor's YouTube channel or something. But
wait, Ring of Honor have a YouTube channel? I didn't know how you watch Ring of Honor. It's that irrelevant. But like, nah, Tucker. I remember when they do the heavy machinery thing. They've got that whole Otis, Ziggler, Mandy Rose, Sonya Deville storyline, and legitimately Tucker is the fifth wheel. He's just there.
Poor guy.
Like
man.
Tucker was that guy who like Otis would like he'd find his birthday cake that he tried to give to Mandy Rose. The birthday cake would be on the ground, and Ziggler would have stomped in it, and then Otis would be like there, like sobbing and like crying, and Tucker would just walk on screen and like backslap Otis, and that'd be the segment. And then later in the year, Tucker was involved in what? I remember watching Tucker versus Ricochet on some random Raw in November, thinking, God, these two are just irrelevant. Like, who cares? Like, and Tucker was wearing the prototypical jobber gear, bland trunks, bland boots, bland knee pads, and he's just got his like tattoo on his like left pec. I'm just like, this guy. What does Vince McMahon do with this guy? What can you give this guy? So I'm seeing him release. I'm just like, I can't really say I'm surprised. So yeah,
the same thing. Like it's Tucker. Yeah, he's gonna show up at Joey Janela's Garage Fed in New Jersey, and he's gonna wrestle somebody. I don't know, some dude from the Indies. I can't even name somebody. And yeah, that'll be big, I guess, on Twitter. That's nice. Good for him.
But don't you want to see Tucker versus Joey Ryan at Talk and Shop Mania 4? Like,
yeah, great for him. I hope he has success. I wish him success. But if you're asking me, like, am I affected by Tucker being released? Do I have ill will towards Vince McMahon and WWE for cutting ties with Tucker? No. But I do hope Tucker succeeds. I hope he goes to Impact or Ring of Honor or AEW and he reinvents himself and he earns a real good living. Because unfortunately for Tucker, he wasn't living the Bo Dallas life, collecting paychecks based on his grandfather and father and brother and dating Liv Morgan. So Tucker doesn't have that kind of luck. So he's someone I could feel for.
Yep. And then next one, Kalisto. This is a guy who he wrestled with Hunico, aka Sin Cara, for like 2 years as the Lucha Dragons. He was on the main roster.
His most recent gimmick was being a Sasha Banks simp. Like as recent as like 6 weeks ago, he was simping over Sasha Banks and whatever dress she was wearing. That was an interesting segment.
That was good. Legit. I remember the only thing I'll remember from Kalisto's career is TLC 2015. Him doing a Salida del Sol to, I forget who exactly it was. One of the New Day guys from the top of a ladder through a ladder. Like that was nuts. Yes. I'll never forget that. But outside of that, what will I remember Kalisto for? Coming out with Grand Metalik and Lindsay Dorado and Lars Sullivan beating them in a 3-on-1 handicap match. That's legit all I'm going to remember from him.
Well, he'll probably be remembered mostly for being a guy that looked like Rey Mysterio. Realistically. Honestly, like that's... Whatever people see Kalisto, like I've had people ask me just like, oh, this Kalisto guy, is that Rey Mysterio? Did he change his name or something?
Yeah. And then also... Yeah, and then moving on from Kalisto because, there's been a latest release, Kevin. This is as of 13 minutes ago.
Uh-oh.
WWE's come to the release of Mojo Rawley.
Oh.
So, yeah, Rob Gronk's, we'll call him partner, has been released from WWE. Thoughts, please?
I didn't even know he was still signed to WWE. That's like...
Wow.
I didn't even know. I thought he got cut in the last cuts last year. I can't remember anything. The only thing I remember Mojo Rawley did... I don't even know if it was him or if it was Gronk. Was it Riley that shoulder tackled Jinder Mahal at WrestleMania 33? Like 6 weeks before Mahal became champion?
I'd be lying if I said I knew, Kevin. I just...
Right, yeah. I think that that's probably his biggest claim to fame was hanging out with Rob Gronkowski at the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal in WrestleMania 33. I would say.
Probably. Like, all I remember from him is legit that empty arena SmackDown in like March of last year, where he was like interviewed by Michael Cole in the ring to open the show, and he's like, "Here's my best friend Rob Gronk," and then Rob Gronk comes out there like humping the ring post. So, like, that's all I remember from Mojo Rawley. The Hype Bros was just, I don't know, it was Vince throwing together a random pair of guys who he had nothing to do with, and then eventually he's released them both. So, yeah, that's Mojo Rawley. I'm sure they're gonna have more releases to come in the remainder of the day. Johnny Ace will call these people up on the phone and be like, "Hey kid, well we don't have space for you anymore. We've got budget cuts, so you're fired." I'm sure Johnny Ace will make more of those phone calls, but for now, yeah, we've been through them. The Iconics, Bo Dallas.
We gotta talk about one thing. We gotta talk about one more thing.
Oh no.
We have to talk about one Velveteen Dream. Like we have to for at least like 2 minutes. People are just irate that Samoa Joe got released, but Velveteen Dream didn't. Which I mean, I understand their beef. Fair point. You know, Samoa Joe, serviceable wrestler, serviceable commentator, it got released, but Velveteen Dream still has a job with all the allegations against him. We haven't seen him on TV. Like, why is Velveteen Dream still a member of the WWE roster? Is the release coming? Are they doing NXT cuts? I don't even know what to make of it. It's just such a mess.
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, I wish we had more information on what they're doing with Velveteen Dream, because you look at Patrick Clark and you go, okay, this time 11 months ago, all these supposed like allegations and stuff leaked for the first time, and that was when, ever since, his career's never been the same. Like, his career will never recover from that. Like, unless... Because this is the thing with Velveteen Dream. Okay, you bring him back as a new gimmick, or he's got like a mask on. Everyone will still know it's a Velveteen Dream, and everyone will still hate him. Like, you can't have Velveteen Dream do a Titus O'Neil and become an ambassador for WWE, because what message is that going to send? Like, that's going to send a horrible message. You can't do that. Like, what can you do with the guy? And like his reputation is forever tarnished. As much as Triple H wants to go on a random NXT conference call after a takeover and be like, "Oh yeah, Velveteen Dream, he's innocent, moving on, nothing to see here." As much as you want to do that, his reputation is just, it's forever tarnished. And the fact that he wasn't released, but Samoa Joe and these guys who I guess you could potentially do something with, maybe, these guys all get cut, and Velveteen Patrick Clark Dream is still there. It's like, I don't know. It's just a weird one, Kevin. I don't get it. I just don't.
Yeah, it's wild. It really is wild to think about. The Velveteen Dream is still on the roster. It's crazy too, because like you look at like 18 months ago, people were saying, "Oh, I want to see John Cena versus Velveteen Dream at WrestleMania. I want to see Velveteen Dream win the WWE title at like WrestleMania 38, 39." And now literally we're at a point in his career where it's just like we're just playing the waiting game, waiting for him to get released, waiting for that future endeavor. And
which like that's tough, because legit, as you say, 18 months ago, even legitimately like 13 months ago from when we're recording this now, I was a genuine big fan of the Velveteen Dream. Not being aware of all this crap that's allegedly happened behind the scenes. When I wasn't aware, I'm looking at Velveteen Dream, and he's a legitimate character wrestler. We don't have many character wrestlers left. This guy, one of the things with him, which I said this when I made my Rise and Fall of Velveteen Dream video like way back, the thing with him is that he, much like, I forget the exact dude's name, the guy who played the Joker in Batman, he lived his gimmick, you know? And like, you just don't see that anymore. Like, Undertaker lived it. I guess MJF kind of lives it. But it takes a different kind of person to do that. And Velveteen Dream, Patrick Clark, he lived that gimmick. And I guess that's been the downfall of his career to this point. So I don't know where they go from here with Patrick Clark. He should be released sometime. Maybe they've silently released him. We don't know. God knows. But yeah, it's a tricky one, Kevin. It really is.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's just move on from the releases.
Swiftly move on. I'll ask you, Kevin, because I mean, we're going to transition this into like kind of a post-Mania type discussion. You went to WrestleMania. You went to Tampa for both days. I want you to answer this one first. Do you feel a WrestleMania hangover? Like, is that fair?
Big time, yeah. Big time. Like I didn't feel like watching Raw. I didn't feel like watching NXT. It's like we just watched WrestleMania. We just watched Takeover. Can we get a freaking break? Do we have to like turn around the next day and watch 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of Takeover? You know. But I mean, AEW is fine because it's it's AEW. They're building up to their next pay-per-view. It's fine, but just like the WrestleMania hangover is real. It really is. It's so real. I felt exhausted. You're exploiting all this energy, all this adrenaline. You're using it, exerting it. And it's like, oh, now we got to watch Raw.
Legit. Like one thing I want to say, it goes back to this thing, which I mean, most of us have echoed for a long time now. There's just too much damn wrestling. You know,
Exactly.
like this past week and a half, we literally had 3 hours of Raw last, like for the go home to Mania. Like the Hall of Fame was two separate hour and a half long shows on Tuesday. Wednesday was legit Takeover Night One, Stand and Deliver, going against AEW Dynamite, and then the night after that was Takeover Stand and Deliver Night Two. Then you had WrestleMania SmackDown. You've got WrestleMania 37 Night One with a kickoff show. WrestleMania 37 Night Two with a kickoff show. You During that you've got Impact Hardcore Justice, which apparently some people actually watched. Then on Monday, you've got a Raw after Mania, which was bloody horrible. But nonetheless, that's 3 more hours. And then you've got 2 more hours of NXT the next night. And then AEW, which was a bit of a different breath of fresh air because it's like a different kind of product. But generally speaking, I don't want to figure out how many hours that is. Like, that's upwards of nearly 20 hours, probably more than 20 hours of wrestling in a week and like literally 9 days. That's gross. It's just the WrestleMania hangover. Personally, after Raw aired, like I went off to do like, real life stuff, did some, co-curricular whatnot, all that. I get home, I'm just like, I feel exhausted from wrestling. Like I didn't want to think about wrestling for the next like day, and like that, they've got to change up how they do it. It's too much wrestling and not enough of a break.
Exactly. Like take that how you feel. And imagine you're sitting in the audience cheering for 6 hours over a combined two nights. You're sitting there, you're driving, you're getting to the hotel like 2 a.m, getting up at 8 a.m. to go do it all again, pal. It's like, and then take that feeling and just imagine what it's like to be a wrestler, Like, you just imagine, bro. It's like if the NFL, immediately following the Super Bowl, the following Monday, you have a Monday Night Football game. And it's like, all right, we're doing the next season right now, right after the Super Bowl. We're just going to keep playing. We're never going to stop. Just that people would get sick of the NFL. People would get sick of the NBA. They would get sick of the MLB. They would get sick of soccer. Whatever sport you want to throw out there, boxing, MMA, it would all be the same deal.
Well, like this is one of the main reasons why wrestling's fallen so far. Because back in the day, you'd have one WWF show, you'd have Raw, which was like a genuine all-time great TV show, not a wrestling sports entertainment experiment on the human race show that it is nowadays. It was a genuinely great 2-hour TV show on Monday nights. And then you have a Nitro show, which for the most part, before 1999, was a genuinely like really good TV show. And that was it for the week. You wouldn't have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. There might be a pay-per-view and you might watch Heat on like Saturday night. That was it. And it was really good wrestling and it left you really wanting more. With this, as I just mentioned, all the different shows, after watching 3 hours of a Raw, you think, I don't want to watch wrestling. And then the next night, there's 3 more hours of a Hall of Fame. Then there's 4 hours of TakeOver combined, and then another couple of hours of this. And it's just, you mentioned it there. Like, I couldn't imagine doing what you did, let alone being a wrestler and, going through the wear and tear on your body and then having to show up in a new arena and drive all through the night to show up to, I don't know, some new town and then go to the gym and then do the media, do the autographs. Like how John Cena did that for 15 years as the top guy for the company. God bless him, because as a fan, I'm burnt out after watching this stuff hardcore for a week. And this guy did it hardcore for 15 years as the face of the company. Nuts.
Exactly. Yeah, and you look at the people that really go all out for WrestleMania week, and they come from like England or Ireland, and they go to the Hall of Fame ceremony. They go to the SmackDown before Mania. They go to TakeOver. They go to WrestleMania. Then they go to the following Raw. It's like imagine that kind of a trip. Oh my God, I couldn't even imagine doing that, bro.
Well, legit, I watched more wrestling in the past week than I literally had in the previous 3 months before that. Because I'm not someone who just watches wrestling. I don't get a great, because I'm more into watching how they play out the storylines, knowing what they do, how they build the characters. That's the kind of stuff I'm into. That's the kind of stuff I find, that's why I find wrestling fun. I don't find wrestling inherently fun to watch matches which I've seen a wrestling match that many times that nothing is really new for me. So I don't really watch the matches. But for this past week, I did, because it's WrestleMania week. I feel obliged to, because I have a channel and all that kind of stuff. So I went out of my way to consciously watch near enough everything that was put out, and I feel stuffed. I'm watching Raw on Monday or Tuesday for me, after Mania. I'm just like, this show sucks. Like, this is just boring as hell. I don't want to watch this anymore. And then, of course, I post 50 reasons why Raw is unwatchable like the next day. But just generally speaking, it's like, it's too much. And not enough of it is that great to justify there being that much, you know?
I agree. Absolutely. I mean, you look at WrestleMania week this week, and I get it, special circumstances. You have, like you said, the Hall of Fame Tuesday. You had Monday Night Raw, Hall of Fame Tuesday. Wednesday, Thursday, 2 nights of TakeOver. Friday, SmackDown. Saturday, Sunday, 2 nights of WrestleMania. And then it's like rinse, repeat. Monday, Tuesday. Then there's Wednesday and Dynamite. It's like, oh my god, it's a lot of wrestling. It's like how people that like enjoy wrestling as a side hobby, I don't think it's possible to do that anymore. I don't think that's like a feasible thing. Because you can't just like, realistically, you can't just tune into like 4 hours of WrestleMania and be like, oh, I saw everything that happened in wrestling the whole year. You have to watch a 6-hour show across 2 nights to witness the culmination of the entire wrestling season, quote unquote. And then if you want to know the build up for the next pay-per-view, or you want to see the fallout, you have to watch 3 hours on Monday because you're going to get half of the fallout and a bunch of filler. And then you have to watch Friday, 2 hours on Friday to get the other half of the fallout of WrestleMania. And then if you're like, oh, what's this NXT show? I want to see what this is all about. Another 2 hours on Tuesday. It's like, I don't think anybody that works like a 9-to-5 job, or they work like, 60 hours a week overtime, and they have like kids, like those kind of wrestling fans, it's very hard to be that kind of wrestling fan nowadays. I think that's pretty fair to say.
Oh, hell yeah. Like, legit, back in the day, as I'm going to really quickly rush over this analogy again, it would be you work your 40 to 60 hour week, you're some like 33-year-old man, you hate your boss, you work your tireless job, you don't really have many outside hobbies, you see your mates, you have a beer every now and then you have WWF Raw's War coming on Mondays, and you think, oh, hell yeah, I'm going to check that out. I get to see Austin beat up his boss. That's the best 2 hours of my week. Like, that's what it was. But now it's like, oh, well, we have 3 hours of dead filler TV Monday, another 2 hours of bland 70s NWA with better production on Tuesday nights. You've got an AEW show. You've got Impact moving to Thursdays. SmackDown's now on Fridays. So essentially, from Monday, April, 5th, through like Friday, like whatever date it is for this Friday, there was literally 2 hours plus of wrestling every night.
It's insanity.
Yeah.
It's insane.
That's nuts.
And then, you got people that watch like New Japan, and people that watch Impact, and people that watch Ring of Honor. Like, how do you watch all this stuff? I don't know.
How do you not feel like you've already like this is the thing I find. Like, it's not like when you've seen one match, you've seen them all, because the amount of like different stories you can tell in matches, the amount of different wrestlers' styles that can meet together. I get it. Okay, you watch some matches, but do you not feel like if you watch all that wrestling, you're just wasting your time watching the same stuff over and over? Like, how many times can you see a suicide dive before it doesn't become fun anymore? How many times can you see a 450 splash before it's like, who cares? How many times can you see a German or a belly-to-belly suplex? It's like, this is the thing I question about people who watch I watch 6 hours of wrestling per day. Like, go outside, like,
Yeah, let's dial back that talk for a second. So,
sorry, pal. I had to shoot the truth, pal. But no, nonetheless. What? Am I doing anything wrong? I don't even know. Nonetheless, the next question we have, we've literally answered this for the last 10 minutes, but I'll just ask this to you: is WrestleMania week too much wrestling? Can they dial back? If so, how can they dial back? That kind of thing.
Yes to everything.
Yes.
It's crazy now. You think about, like what I said earlier, you think you have to find out the fallout to WrestleMania, you literally have to watch 5 hours of television. That's insane.
If that, you can watch Raw Talking Smack, exclusive clips on the YouTube channel, Twitter clips, NXT's 2 hours. Like, you can legit catch up 10 hours of content in the next 5 days to see the WrestleMania fallout. And it used to be a 2 hour long Raw is War the next night.
Yeah, exactly. And then you would get, you get the recap show on Thursday, which would be SmackDown. Yeah, I don't know, pal.
Just bruh. Like, something's got to change with this. Like, it's just, I don't know. Kevin, I don't even know. Like, what can they do at this point? Like, Make WrestleMania a one night 4 hour show. That's a big one they can do to make it feel infinitely more special.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there'll be a point in time where WWE is on Peacock exclusively because standard cable and satellite TV isn't a thing anymore. So there's no USA Network. So we're gonna have SmackDown on Peacock for 3 hours on Friday, and then we're gonna have Raw for 4 hours. Probably hell they'll make it a 4 hour show on Mondays. I don't know.
Well, I remember now. WWE in 5 years time video. You said like, yeah, and give it 5 years, and there'll be a women's exclusive WWE show on Tuesday afternoons on Peacock, and Stephanie McMahon will be like the GM, and like they're gonna have all these just random shows, and it's just too much. Like, why do we need to see a 2 to 4 hour long show every second night, or even in the last 2 weeks' case, every night? Why? Most of these matches on these shows don't need to be happening. Give us stuff we need to see, but instead it's the opposite. Now with this Peacock stuff, it's here's any content you can. Here's any bit of content to justify your $4.99 for Peacock. It's like, no, just stop, please, slow down.
Facts. Yeah, it's like the pay-per-views. You look at the pay-per-views, you don't have to watch Raw. You don't have to watch SmackDown. You be good to go. You just tune into a pay-per-view and they'll recap the whole, like everything that you missed from Raw and SmackDown. They'll recap it throughout the pay-per-view. No matter what pay-per-view it is, whether it's Fastlane, TLC, Hell in a Cell, all you have to do is tune into that, and they will gladly catch you up. Michael Cole will walk you through every single thing that happened leading up to Randy Orton versus The Fiend, and you will not have had to see an episode of Raw from the past 5 or 6 months.
Yeah, you won't watch a full 3 hour Raw episode filled with Mandy Rose versus Shayna Baszler, filled with Tom Phillips recapping you as to what Riddle said to Sheamus backstage on his scooter. You won't have to watch that crap. You don't have to watch an hour of commercials every Monday night. You don't have to see that. You can watch a 3-minute video package on the network special. They don't even pay-per-views anymore. You can watch a 3-minute little clip, and if you're that infatuated by what you've seen, you can go and catch up with all the segments on YouTube if you so please. But nonetheless, I think we've covered this about as good as we can. Just there's too much wrestling. Point blank, period.
Yep, exactly. That's a video idea, pal. Too much wrestling.
Jesus Christ. So yeah, moving on. I think now we'll switch gears and look forward to the next couple months of WWE. One of the things they always do at this time of year is do a superstar shakeup, or not really a draft, but like a superstar shakeup where they move some wrestlers around. Considering where the rosters are at, I think they need to do it. But that's just me. Like, what do you think? Should there be a superstar shakeup? If so, is there any one you really want to see change brands? That kind of thing. Just hit us with something, Kevin.
They just did one, right? Back in like October of last year? September?
They did a draft. They did a draft, yeah.
Yeah, then we get the shakeup, pal. So we'll have, they'll probably move like McIntyre maybe to SmackDown. But if you do that, you take Raw's biggest star, you put him on SmackDown. Who do you put on Raw?
Yeah.
Do you put Seth Rollins back on Raw? Like, what are you gonna do? We're gonna have the Messiah running wild on Raw, losing to Bobby Lashley every week. Like, what are we gonna do with the superstar shakeup? I don't think it's. Yeah, I agree. I think it does need to happen because we need like fresh faces. We get Sasha Banks on Raw with red hair. That'll be that's what we need, pal. We need Sasha Banks with red hair. I don't know. I feel like the rosters, especially SmackDown, the way SmackDown is constructed, I feel like it's fine. Because realistically, what are you gonna do with the superstar shakeup? We're gonna go back to right where we were. 10 months ago? We're gonna have the Fiend on SmackDown. If we switch it up, put the Fiend on SmackDown, AJ Styles on SmackDown. You take Rollins, you take Sasha Banks, you throw them back on Raw. Move Charlotte over to SmackDown. Becky Lynch returns, hypothetically, put her on Raw or put her on SmackDown. We're going to be in the same boat, basically, right?
Well, Kevin, what company do you think this is? This is WWE. Their motto is, if it's not broken, break it. SmackDown's roster isn't broken. Break it. So what they're probably going to do is, God knows. Like the Smart Bosses have talked about this for years, but it's this whole thing. Like, no one outside of Reigns, and you could say Sasha Banks, no one really has brand identity anymore. Like Reigns is like the last guy. It's like a Batista on SmackDown in like the mid 2000s. Like when you think Reigns, you think SmackDown. You think SmackDown, you think Reigns. Absolutely. And besides him, like when you think Kevin Owens, like is he on Raw or SmackDown? I have to like take a moment to actually try and think and remember. Like Kevin Owens hardly bleeds blue like Roman Reigns does. Like it's just you can switch the guys back and forth. It's not really going to change a thing. It's like, oh, Kevin Owens is on SmackDown. Kevin Owens is on Raw. Brilliant. Wow. That doesn't make me want to watch Raw or SmackDown any less. I just don't care. You know, it's the same thing with most of the roster. So if they do the shakeup, I feel like McIntyre to SmackDown is imminent. I don't know who they're going to bring to Raw. Probably, God knows, Daniel Bryan and Owens, maybe. But will that make you want to watch Raw anymore? Well, not really. But at the same time, can anything make you want to watch Raw? Like, even if you move Reigns to Raw, ratings go up 100,000 viewers. But there's still